Hi there, I'm Claire McDonald-Liu and this is the Family Health Lab. I'm about to talk to Justin Wilford. Justin has been working in the family health and wellbeing space for over 10 years. He was co-founder of the Max Love Project and also the Family Thrive. And now he's going to be talking to me about his latest venture, the Yes Collective. That's all about helping parents and helping families around their mental health and their emotional resilience. So he's got some exciting different offers and opportunities to support families to help them learn different tools around emotional well-being. So I'm really, really excited to find out what he's been involved in, why he decided to focus in on this core area of health, and to see what we can learn as parents and what tools and steps we can take for our own health. So let's meet Justin.
You're listening to the Family Health Lab. Healthy parents, healthy kids.
Justin, thank you. Thanks very much for jumping on with me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And it's around 8 a.m. there, and I was curious. It's a little later here. It's 9 at night. But I was curious because 8 a.m. in my house it's quite busy. But you're happy to your house is in a good place.
Well, so our kids now are 15 and 12. So I just dropped off the 15-year-old. Our 12-year-old is now doing homeschool. And she is pretty self-sufficient. And so she gets up and she does her own thing now. We now have 2 little puppies. So they're the most chaotic part of our home right now.
Exciting. What kind of doggies?
We have a cockapoo and a golden doodle. Yeah, it's, oh my gosh. And the cockapoo is now, I think 8 months old, and then the golden doodle's like 3 months old or 4. So it's a lot of work. It happened in a very odd way. We didn't plan to have 2 puppies, and now we do. Well, that'll be another podcast.
Yeah, I'll listen in. We have I think in the UK we call them cockapoos, and over here we've moved to Australia. They called them something that I've forgotten, but it's the same thing—a fluff ball of love, basically.
A fluff ball. That's a great description. Yeah,
yeah, I love it. Our first dog, actually. So yeah, not dog people, I thought, but yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous. Love her. Yeah, it makes a big difference. But back into kind of what we were going to be chatting about, we've actually not chatted before, have we? And that's kind of interesting for me because I've been aware of your work, yours and Audra's, your wife, for many, many years since Max Love came into being. And I just loved what you were doing there around supporting your son and also bringing that to the wider community of children who needed that support and families. So we've just been really interested in kind of your work. And Justin, my husband, he met you both in a number of years ago. I don't know how many years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think maybe we met in 2018 at the Metabolic Health Conference, right? Yeah,
that's right. He had a ball, and he's also been doing some of your courses and your programs, which we're about to talk about.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure getting to know Justin. Yeah, amazing guy.
We're benefiting from your work and what you're putting out in the world, and we're just really supportive because of your approach is integrative. It's and I just love that vibe where you've gone through some tough times yourself, or you have, and then you're putting out in the world what you believe helps other people, and you're really kind of quite courageous in that way. So yeah, I really wanted to thank. Oh, that you're welcome, and yeah, just wanted to find out more. So do you want to let us know a little bit about how you got into this space?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's quite big.
So yeah, in 2011, I had just graduated with a PhD in cultural geography. I was a professor at the time, working or preparing to go out on the job market to get a tenure track position, ready to be an academic, a full-time tenured or tenure track academic. And then our son was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So this is summer of 2011. And it was like an atom bomb had just gone off in our lives. And all of a sudden, overnight, I was no longer interested in cultural geography and this thing that I'd put years of work into. I just graduated, dissertation. I was turning my dissertation into a book. I was putting the final touches on edits to publish the book with a university press. And it was just like, it all just ended overnight because I didn't care about it anymore. So that is part of my story. Like, it's just this really this really clear line where my life changed forever. I didn't know what was going to happen. My wife at the time, just amazing. She's such a dynamo and a leader. She saw that the things that we were doing to help our son thrive. So he had a surgery, an emergency surgery to remove some of the tumor. They didn't get it all. He couldn't move the left side of his body. He couldn't talk. After surgery, we were in the hospital for a month afterwards because they wouldn't let us leave until he was able to get out of his bed and go to the bathroom. And that's how long it took for him to be able. And still, even then, we had to help him. He wouldn't have been able to do it on his own. And so and then he had to start chemotherapy after that. So we knew there was so much more that we could do to help our son. The doctors, wonderful people, thank God for them, but their approach is come in, let us hook your son up, and then go home and then come back the next time. We had all this time at home. Like, we are in charge of his food. We're in charge of his sleep. We're in charge of what he does outside of the hospital. Is there anything we can do? And the answer was no, actually, just go have fun and then come back in a couple days. And so we knew that there was more that we could do. So I started to do research around food, research around sleep. Actually, sleep was the first thing because he had a hard time sleeping when he came home from the hospital. So sleep was our first real passion. But then we got into really everything that parents can do outside of the hospital to help their kids thrive through cancer treatment. That was our focus. And a few months in, we saw Max really flourishing using all of these approaches. It was acupuncture, massage, physical therapy, and not just the conventional physical therapy, but doing anything we could to get him more physically active, because the research on exercises is mind-blowing. There's nothing more powerful that we can do than exercise for every aspect of our health. So we were doing all of these things, and Audra had the idea that she wanted to help other families access all of these tools, because we were going into the clinic and we were seeing all of these other families who had the same concerns that we did. What can we do outside of this? But we're given the same advice that we were, which is nothing, just keep coming here and making your appointments. And so that's how Max Love really started, was Audra's desire to bring all of the things that we were doing with Max and help other families access them. I'm a slow learner, so it took me a while. At first, I was like, what? This is crazy. We're fighting for our son's life here. We're doing everything we can to help our son. And you want to start a nonprofit? It really didn't make sense to me. But I had this, maybe it was an intuition or a gut feeling, and I said, all right, I trust you. And then also the sense is, it can't be bad to get our mind off of the stress and the anxiety of all this. So that's how Max Love Project began in late 2011. Mm-hmm. And then by 2013, we were in full force doing cooking classes. We were doing exercise classes. We were doing workshops on all different health behaviors. And I can go on to tell a story, but that's how things started.
Yeah, I pushed you in the deep end there, didn't I? I mean, that's a phenomenal start, a crazy time you went through and a tough time. And for you to dive into that space, then to give everything you were learning and gaining to others. I just think it's wonderful, really incredible. So I'm glad you shared that with us.
Oh, thank you.
It evolved into the Thrive and Family Thrive.
So the Family Thrive, which is now Yes Collective didn't happen until COVID hit in early 2020. And that was our effort to bring Maxo Project out to the larger world, or all of the things that we were learning and all of the amazing clinicians and experts that we had connected with out to the larger world. But that didn't come till much later on.
I was going to bring it back to yourself personally. What is your own holistic kind of health approach? Do you have one? Do you have any routines or practices that you try to?
So personally, this has been an amazing personal journey for me. Every step of the way, we would get into the research around nutrition or exercise or sleep, whatever the case is for Max. It always started around Max, and then it became around Maxo Project and other families. And I immediately saw, oh my gosh, I need to change a lot of things. And so it started with Max, then it went to Maxo Project, and then it hit me like, oh my gosh, I need to take care of my sleep. I need to eat differently. I need to exercise more and exercise differently. But when it came around to me, and then this eventually became our focus, is parents. We started out with the focus on kids, but then we learned that kids aren't going to change their health behaviors if the parents are not also changing their health behaviors. And so then the focus became on parents. And so what I really got into was this idea of the minimum effective dose. So the minimum effective dose is the idea that more is not always better, and that most things we will benefit from doing a certain amount of, a little bit of, and that after a certain threshold, let's say the minimum effective dose, doing more of it might give us more benefit, but the effects are going to be less the more we add. I'm not sure if I explained that in the right way. This is another way to think of it. Most of the benefit you get from exercise is going to come in the first, say, 20 minutes of exercise, like the vast majority. And then, of course, there are people who love to exercise an hour or more, but the benefit that they get after that 20 minutes is pretty small. Yeah, they are getting the benefits, but most of it is in the first bit. And so for parents, we don't have the time, we don't have the energy, we don't have the attention. We need to focus on the minimum effective dose. So I'm all about how can I get the most out of a very small amount of exercise? How can I get the most out of my sleep? If I can't get 8 hours of sleep, if I can only get, say, 6.5 or 7, how can I make sure that those are high quality hours of sleep? With nutrition, how can I dial in my nutrition so I don't need to count anything? I don't need to worry, I don't need to over focus on all the macronutrients and the micronutrients. And so my focus has been how to simplify and really get this minimum effective dose. So I can talk about any of these things in more detail, but that's my general approach. And it's really focused on getting parents maximum benefit for the minimum amount of work.
I like it. I like anything that's simple. I mean, I work as a nutritionist, and sometimes I work with somebody who's been so overwhelmed by going from one practitioner to another. They've got total overwhelm, and then if I boil it back and simplify it and just go, where are you? What can we do that's going to give us the biggest wins? What's the low hanging fruit? What are you able to do? So I go there, and in my was saying that, I was thinking, yay, because I do 10 minutes of yoga every morning.
That's it. And you're going to get the most benefit there. And you could bump it up to 20 or 30, but then every minute after that, the benefit's going to be less and less and less. So,
but I like it. Yeah, because I'm thinking, yay, that's a win for me. Because I was doing an hour and a half, then I'd miss it some weeks and once a week. But this 10 minutes, I feel amazing. So now I feel like I've got your seal of approval on that. So that's cool. So we can, I'm interested in the Yes Collective. I'm absolutely fascinated because it's evolved. You've taken all this learning. Justin has been involved in some of your online programs. You've got the app. I've been listening to your beautiful podcasts. I asked you earlier by email for some tips because I just think you're amazing at producing them. They're just so engaging, so interesting.
Thank you so much.
It's around supporting parents' mental and emotional health.
Yes. So we started out just focused on parents and really focused on mental and emotional health. We are still very focused on mental and emotional health, but we're also expanding it now beyond parents. So yes, we have a lot of parent-focused content, but we're also now expanding it beyond parents and taking it into the workplace. And so we have a lot of focus on working parents, but we're now expanding beyond that as well. But mental and emotional health is our passion at the Yes Collective. It's also our passion with Maxa Project as well, because what we found starting in about 2015, so we had been doing these workshops and cooking classes on really physical health, things like exercise, nutrition, and sleep. And what we were finding is that families loved coming to the workshops. They loved connecting. They loved learning about all this stuff. And they left so excited. And then we would see them at the next workshop. We'd say, okay, has anything changed? Like, okay, so what? They would say, no, our lives are so chaotic. Everything's so stressful. Everything's so overwhelming. We haven't made any nutrition, exercise, or sleep changes, but we love coming to the classes. And so I started to evaluate these programs in more detail and found that these parents were overwhelmed, just stress, anxiety, just having either a child in treatment or in survivorship is just overwhelming. But I think all parents feel this. It's just overwhelming. And so we learned that we had to focus on mental and emotional health, that nothing else was going to happen if parents were feeling totally stressed out, totally overwhelmed. And so that, so that became the approach. And that is really what Yes Collective is all about, is what we call emotional health. Emotional health really is mental health, but we really like to focus on this term emotional health, that this is what is going to help us be more grounded, be more present, be more connected. And that's what really matters in making all of the other changes that we want to make in our lives.
Okay, that makes sense. Working in the health and well-being space, I do see that people do have that struggle, and they start out at different points. Like you were saying, with your son, sleep was an enormous factor. You need to get that right, perhaps before we can get something else right. And working with families, stress, anxiety. I mean, what kind of families do you work with, and what do you think they're up against now with the modern family?
Oh, well, are you talking about outside of the childhood cancer space or in the childhood cancer space?
Actually just generally, really. Generally. The modern family, stress, kind of workload, pressures. Is that something that you're seeing that they're being impacted by?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So the reason why I love the idea of emotional health is because for me, it gets to the heart of what we're up against. So in our modern lives, most people who are just overwhelmed with schedules, overwhelmed with work, overwhelmed with all of the demands, there's a lot of stuff inside. So a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. And we have learned from childhood on, most of us, that it's not okay to express these, or we don't know quite how to properly or adequately express these. And so they get shoved down, they get pushed away. And what this does is it makes us less connected to everyone else around us, because one of the fundamental truths in emotional health is whatever we can't accept or adequately process or hold in ourselves, we're not going to accept in others. That includes for our kids, for our partner, for our colleagues, for our friends. And so when they have stress, when they have anxiety and big emotions, we're not going to be able to adequately connect with them. And so we become disconnected. Another fundamental truth of emotional health is that if we shut off a part of our emotions, we're trying to shut off all the bad ones. We don't want to feel the anxiety. We don't want to feel the fear. We don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel alone. So we shut off all these bad ones, But one of the truths of emotional health is that you can't just shut off the bad ones. If you shut those off, you also shut off the good ones. And so we're now shutting off big joy, deep connection, flow, all of these really positive ones as well. And so our emotional world gets constricted. And so we're on a podcast, but you would see my hands going from wide out, if we can experience all of the emotions, to being constricted. And now my hands are coming in really narrow. And so this is also a condition of being emotionally numb, emotionally disconnected with ourselves. So this is the case for so many of us. This is not just, there's something wrong with you. No, this is the modern world that we live in. Like this is not just your special problem. We're all dealing with this. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do, and what we're doing right now, it requires more than just reading an article or listening to a podcast. So we have these workshops that we're now piloting and rolling out with companies. Is we are helping parents, and now we're helping others as well, go through some really concrete steps, really concrete practices that help us start to get in touch with the deeper stuff inside that we've been pushing away. It's not fun at first. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And this is the pathway to emotional health, is to start to open up to that anxiety, to those fears, to the aloneness. But if we can do it in a safe container, and we can start to learn how to be with this ourselves, then we can start to be with our kids and our partner, our friends, our colleagues in new, healthier, more connected ways.
It sounds really, really impressive, and much, much, much needed from what I see, just generally in the communities, and post COVID, and lots and lots of modern day pressures just generally for families.
So right now we have the app open to individuals. It's $9.99 a month. You can go to Yes Collective .app or it's home.yescollective.app, and you can sign on, and you'll get access to articles and guided meditations and special podcasts. Our workshops, though, right now are just being offered to workplaces, to companies. So we are moving into what we call the enterprise model. We are trying to figure out how to do these in a sustainable way. So we're kind of in the middle of learning how to do the workshops. And so right now it's only through companies, but we are going to find ways to open these up to everybody regardless. And so, yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram as well at Yes Collective, and you can follow us on Facebook at Yes Collective.
I'll pop those in the notes, and I follow, and I find them uplifting and bright in a world of kind of social media, where it kind of sometimes it brings you down, but I find them pretty handy.
Thank you.
And I mentioned I've been listening to your podcast, and I wanted to know about a core message that I think I hear coming across as you're having discussions with various different awesome experts, and they're giving people tips, and having chats about core challenges that people might face. And I find them really, really interesting on different topics. But there's something that comes through, which is it's not your fault, and you're not alone. And I really like that. Tell me a little bit about that, your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the idea that our emotional health challenges right now are due to the environment that we live in. Humans did not evolve to live the way we're living right now. For hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens lived in small bands of connected individuals, right? We were living in our kinship networks and our village networks. We were tightly bound. We didn't have to think about, what do I want to be when I grow up? What is my identity? We didn't certainly live in nuclear households, disconnected from larger kinship. So we are living in super strange times for our species. And so to really just take a step back and understand that the depression, the anxiety, all of the emotional and mental challenges that we're facing, it's not your fault. You are not broken. You're not bad. You are living in a strange, bizarre environment for your species. And so that's the first part. It's not your fault. You're not alone, right? Like we are all in this. We are now in a globalized, industrialized, capitalist, bureaucratized world. We're all in this together now. But then there's a third thing that I want to say is that it's not destiny. Like anxiety, depression, mental health problems, this is not simply the way we have to live. That there are tools, there are so many wonderful expert resources out there that can help us adapt to this bizarre environment. But it's like physical fitness. So if you think about, 100 years ago, if you saw somebody running on the street, you'd think like there's a fire or maybe somebody's chasing them. Like, what is going on? Now, if you see somebody running on the street, it's like, oh no, that guy's running on the street. Therefore, exercise. It was so bizarre to do that 100 years ago and any time in the past because we got enough exercise in our regular daily life. It was just part of the world that we lived in. It is no longer the case. So we need to be intentional about it. We need to set aside time. We need to be intentional about exercising. If we don't, we are going to be sick and we are going to be unhealthy. But it's the same thing for our minds. It's the same thing for our hearts. It's the same thing for our souls. If we don't set aside time and be intentional about taking care of our inner worlds, we're going to be anxious, depressed. We're going to be sick. Yeah. So that's just the last part that I want to add. Yeah, you are, it's not your fault. You're not alone, but it's also not destiny.
Not your destiny. These practices are evidence-based, and by practicing regularly and kind of dipping into what works for you and kind of figuring that out, and then practicing them regularly, you'll have your challenges, your ups and downs. But you can really make a difference. So I really love that as well. That it's not your destiny. We've mentioned parents and modern day society and kind of what we're up against, what people are up against. Not just parents, but parents. It's I feel that there's particular challenges. What have you seen with your huge amount of experience now in this space with children at rates of ill health or anxiety levels? Do you feel that it's what would you comment about this particular time growing up in this time?
Yeah, I have come to believe that our children's health is just a reflection of our health, and that parents, it's like, when you get on an airplane and they go through, the flotation devices and the oxygen mask, parents put on your oxygen mask first before you go to help your kid. And so if you're seeing, oh, my child is suffering from anxiety, my child is depressed, my child, there are whatever issues that my child has, I invite parents to take a deep breath, step back, and ask themselves how they need to put on their own oxygen mask. Like what in their own lives is feeling out of alignment, is feeling needs to be addressed. What sort of intentional steps can they start to make, not just for their physical health, but for their mental and emotional health as well.
Mm-hmm. It makes complete sense. Modeling is a big factor. Children reflect what we do, and we see that on the other side of things with ill health and chronic ill health and overweight and obesity. It really does what the parents are modeling really goes down to the children. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just add that it felt easier for me when Max was diagnosed to just focus on him and say, okay, what are the things we're going to do to change for him, his diet, his sleep, everything for him. And it became clear that, I can't make any changes for him that I'm not making for myself. Like, it really does start with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it helps, with regard to nutrition is my main practice, but I'm so super interested in all the pillars of health. I think the area of mental health is just fundamental for you to be able to practice any of the other disciplines anyway, and improve your physical health and your nutrition and maintain it and sustain it. I've forgotten where I was going with that. Oh yeah, in terms of all of us practicing the same, making the same changes, eating the same way. I don't think it works as well when one child in the family eats in a different way. We've all benefited in my own home from nutritional changes, and then looking after the whole health, looking after the sleep and the exercise and the mindfulness. All of those pillars came together, and then we all benefit together. And then you're reinforcing them, you're all enjoying them, and one person isn't left out or special or different. It's the norm, and it helps with that sustainability as well.
Beautiful.
In terms of parents who are listening in, and they're interested, they're curious about getting started, but they feel like they're at completely step one. Where can they start? What kind of practice or strategy or tool could they take on board that's they could work with immediately and simply get stuck into at home?
Beautiful. Yeah. So I think the first thing that parents can do is to begin by incorporating 4-7-8 breathing into their daily lives. And so 4-7-8 breathing is just 4 seconds in through your nose. So you inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, hold at the top for 7 seconds, and then exhale out of your mouth very slowly for 8 seconds. Do that 3 or 4 times, and then go back to doing whatever you're doing. Incorporate that into your day as many times as you can. What is that going to do? It's going to start to give you a little bit of extra space inside, a little bit of extra mental and emotional space for you to begin to notice. And so that's the next step so you're going to start to decrease your nervous system's stress, like the stress is carried in your body, the stress, anxiety, overwhelm. You start to decrease it a little bit by doing this 4-7-8 breathing. And then you get a little bit of space inside, and then you can start to notice. And these are just the first 2 steps. Breathe and then notice. What are you noticing? Just notice what's happening for you. Notice the overwhelm, notice the anxiety, notice the heaviness, notice the buzziness. Just notice. And I promise that this noticing, this awareness is going to lead you down a path that is going to eventually turn into really big emotional and mental health changes. But it just starts there. Don't worry about steps 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just begin here. 4-7-8 breathing as many times as you can throughout the day, and then notice. Just relax back and just notice the heaviness, notice the overwhelm, just notice what's here. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I think that's fantastic, because it is something that they can get into practice and raise that awareness. So yeah, thank you. That's awesome, and really simple. So that's great. I wanted to ask as well, how is this, because this seems like a really kind of significant focus for you in terms of the mental health. So how has this been helping with your own family and challenges?
Yeah.
Parenting challenges as they crop up with a 12 and a 15-year-old.
Oh my gosh. I grew up in a family where big emotions, it would just be ignored. Like, can we just ignore it, just shut it down? Let's just not to go there. So my knee-jerk reaction in the past would have been to get really upset and then just to shut down. And so I'd be really upset and then shut down. And so my own journey has been learning how to be okay, learning how to be with my big feelings. When something big comes up, I can now be with it, right? I can see it, I can notice it. And I won't get into the details, but I use a lot of parts work or internal family systems work, which that's a whole nother podcast. But what this does is it allows me to get in touch with particular feelings and just to let those feelings know that I see them, I'm here with them, it's okay, I'm not trying to change them. Okay, but there's a bigger force here. My true self, my core self, whatever you want to call it, there's a bigger force, and I can make more space for that. And then I can authentically and openly start to talk to either my partner or my kids. I can say something like, "Oh, I'm feeling just this constriction in my chest right now. There's a part of me that's really triggered, and I want to speak for this part and not from it." And then I can be more articulate, and I can eventually lower the temperature, and then I can start to speak from my heart, from my core. I can say, when I heard you say that thing, there was a part of me that just felt wounded, and then I was really triggered. But I just want you to know that I love you, and that I really care about our relationship. Or just to be able to say, I don't know how to move forward right now. I don't know what to say, but I love you. And so just simple things like that come from getting that distance where I can be with my emotions instead of in them, transforms every relationship. And it now means that I can, things can still pop off, right? We can still get triggered. We can still have conflict. We can still allow for things to be here, but now we're not caught up in the middle of them. We can get a little bit of distance. We can then start to talk about them, and we can talk about them from a place of love and centeredness and groundedness.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's really, really kind of you to share kind of where you're at and how it is for you and what's been going on. You mentioned, and I'm not sure if I've got the correct name, internal family systems. Is that what you called it?
Yes, internal family systems.
You have a podcast on that I have listened to recently, and I thought it was awesome. So when I share the links to your podcast, people will be able to find that. They'll be able to, if they want to kind of hear a bit more about.
We've got a couple of them, but okay. So I'll just recommend the one with Frank Anderson. So if you're thinking of that one, that is the best one on internal family systems. Frank Anderson is a psychiatrist and an expert in internal family systems, and that podcast is just amazing. He drops so much knowledge, so much fantastic information. Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, I genuinely think there's a lot of good stuff in those podcasts. So I think it's well worth if people want to kind of figure out where they are or which particular practice or, or just kind of hear other people's insights. Very, very open as you are. So yeah, that's I think it's well worth listening to. And that's it's all, this is adults, but in terms of children or teens, what would you like children and teens to understand about emotional health, their own emotional health? Is there anything you'd love it if they knew?
Well, what we've been working on with our kids is around this parts work is when you feel triggered, when you feel big emotions, or even when it might be really down or shut down or sad and alone, whatever the case is, if you can, this is me speaking to my kids, just identify the part of you that feels this way and just notice that part. That in itself is really powerful, because what it does is it allows us to go from being fully consumed by a feeling, like we're in it, it's just here, it's just this big thing and we can't see our way out of it, to getting a little bit of distance. And now we can see that, this is actually just a part. It's just a part. And we don't need to change the part. We don't need to shame the part. We don't need to do anything with the part except just to notice it. And then the next steps are, once you notice it, you can start to relate to it. You can say, oh, I see you. I'm here with you. You're not alone. And then after they get used to that, the next step could be, oh, I feel you. I hear you. I see you. You're not alone. Is there anything you need from me? Is there anything you need? And that is an important step, because it might be like, yeah, I just need some alone time. I just, like everything's too much. Or, yeah, I just need a hug, or I need to talk with you about this, or whatever the case is. They can hear like, oh yeah, there is something that I need and that I'm not getting right now.
And that kind of reflects something that happened to me today. Kind of had a big kind of blowout with my son, and he's heading into the teens, and the information from that particular podcast came back, and I was noticing, because I'm I would say a layperson at the beginning of this kind of journey, really fascinated by it, and I think it's going to come in really, really beneficial to me as I start to. My children are a bit younger than yours, 12 and 10, so I'm just starting to kind of go into those zones of teens and adolescents and all of that, and I think this is going to be so super, super helpful. In fact, when you've rolled out and you've got this out there in the world and in the workplace, schools next, please. I think it'd be really fantastic to get this out there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for jumping on. Thank you for your time. It's awesome to be able to chat with you. And finally, it kind of feels a bit weird because I've heard of you both for so long and your work. So yeah, it's kind of very, very cool to finally get a chance to have a good chat with you.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And then can I just ask you, just finally, just kind of final note, what resource would you like to leave? If you could kind of suggest one for families who are just getting aware of this area, what do you want to leave them with?
Well, I think the best resource is probably our podcast. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, because we post not just updates from the podcast, but we'll post guided meditations, we'll post affirmations, we'll post little nuggets of wisdom from our expert team. And on our expert team, we have amazing clinical psychologists and therapists and coaches. So we have so much stuff that we put out there that's just free. The podcast is free. The Instagram and Facebook is free. So hop on in. If you want to know more about me in particular, I have a website. It's justinwilford.com. And so you can check out what I do on the side personally. But yeah, so it's Maxwell Project, it's Yes Collective, and then it's justinwilford.com.
Cool. And there's so many good resources, so many nuggets, wisdom. I think it's going to be super, super beneficial for people. So lovely. Thank you so much, Justin. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you, Claire.